G'day and welcome back to the channel. Drone rules, drone regulations. Yes, I'm going to talk about the regulations, the new regulations that have been announced in Canada. And if you don't know, Canada is the country where Canadians come from. Makes sense, doesn't it? Otherwise known as Kazakhstan, the Republic of Kazakhstan. Now, when they first came out with drone rules, Canada was a laughingstock. You know, there was basically nowhere you could fly in all of Canada because all the little circles around airports and helipads overlapped. So they made some interim rules which fixed that to a degree, and I think most people were modestly happy with that. But of course, the Canadians, like everywhere else in the world, we can't have people having fun, and you know, we need to get the death toll from drones down to an acceptable level. So they've come up with some new rules. Mr. Trudeau and his Garneau, isn't it? Trudeau, look, show my age. Mr. Garneau and his government have come out with some new rules, and I'm going to just go through them briefly for you. Where are we? Got to find the right things. So much stuff here. Okay. There's a whole lot of new rules, basically just to sort of round things up. And I've only briefly glanced through them, so I might be wrong. If I am, please correct me in the comments. But they're putting in registration. Now, most countries have done registration. USA has registration. Ireland has registration. Australia's bringing in registration. The difference with Canada, however, is that they're not registering the pilot. They're not registering the drone owner, the operator. They want you to register every drone or every model aircraft that weighs more than 250 grams, which at $5 a pop, I think was the figure I saw. I don't know if that's official or someone just made it up, but if it's $5 a pop to register your models, anyone with a reasonable collection of modestly sized models could be bankrupted by this, and it doesn't bode well for compliance. Why can't you just do what the rest of the world's doing and register the pilot and have the pilot's registration on the models? Does it really matter if you individually register the drones? I don't think it does, but the Canadians know what they're doing, I'm sure. And the other thing is that there are two classes of drone operators. You have the standard and the, there's two levels. The bottom level is the simple one, but you have to be 14 years of age to fly a drone unsupervised or a model aircraft unsupervised in Canada as of June the 1st. When these new regulations come in. If you're a 13-year-old and you want to go down to the park and fly your little 600-gram foam model, no, you could face a fine of up to $3,000 if you dare to be so reckless and so dangerous as to do that. Even if you go into a little paddock in the middle of nowhere, you would still be breaking the regulations and subject to a fine of up to 3,000 Canadian dollars. I think that's about 75 cents American, but you know, in Canada, those dollars are worth a lot of money. So yeah, and there's some other perplexing things like in the rules it says, do not fly anywhere near airplanes, helicopters and other drones. So drone racing obviously is out. You can't fly close to other drones, or in fact, most modelling activities, most club flying fields are out, because when you go to a club flying field, I use the word drones, but remember, politicians don't understand the difference between a Phantom 4 and an AXN or a Bixler. You're not allowed to fly your models near other models. According to the regulations, these guys know what they're doing. This can't be right. But I saw it. I saw it in the Gazette, I think it was. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Now, no drugs. I know Canada has just legalised cannabis, but you can't use it when you're flying your drone. You're not allowed to drink or drug for 12 hours before a flight. So no partying on Saturday night and flying on Sunday morning. I'm sorry, but you will be fined up to 3,000 Canadian dollars. Okay, turn the page over. Here's a quote from the media. A Garneau spokesman said, "Science demonstrates that drones 300 grams and heavier at full speed can cause damage to a cockpit, and that's why they've got a cutoff point at 250 grams." I've never seen a report where they've fired a 300-gram drone at an aircraft and damaged the cockpit. And what is full speed? Is it full speed for the drone? Full speed for the aircraft? It's like, did he pluck this out of his little Canadian bottom? I don't know where he got this, and this is a Garneau spokesman. So, must be true. Yeah, I love the way that politicians like to use science that they make up out of their own heads when it suits them. But when the real science comes along, like the George Mason University science that says there's one risk of a fatality resulting from drones colliding with aircraft every 400 years, no, that science is not acceptable. Okay. Anyway, so if you're a 14-year-old, you can't get a license to fly a drone, and you can't fly a drone without a license. And therefore, you risk all these fines. But if you are a kid, you can be supervised by someone who has a license. But if you're visiting Canada, you can't fly alone. If you're a tourist to Canada and you take your Phantom or your Mavic or whatever, or even your Mavic Air, you will still not be able to fly it. I'm sorry, but this has killed the whole thing about people taking drones and using them to film parts of Canada. Why? Because you need a license to fly a drone. And to get a license, you must be a citizen or permanent resident aged 14 years or over. So forget taking your drones to Canada to film the scenery. You get a $3,000 fine if you're caught. Have the Canadian politicians really thought this through properly? I would have thought that these days telling tourists, go away, bugger off, we don't want you because you got a drone, is not the brightest thing to do when tourism represents a fairly large chunk of most countries' economy. But the Canadians, they know what they're doing, eh, Mr. Garneau? But it gets better. According to the media report I read, you're not allowed to fly your drone if it has frost, snow or ice on it. So if you are flying around the local field and you do a touch and go on a snowy day and you get a bit of snow stuck on your skis, $3,000 fine for you. And also, this is probably a hard one too. If you want to carry flammable materials, you need a special permit. You're not allowed to do it under the rules. You're going to get a special permit to do that. Last time I checked, LiPo batteries were pretty damn flammable. You try banging a nail through one and see how flammable they are. So you're not allowed to put batteries in your model according to the rules, and they must be right because that's flammable materials. You need to get a special permit if you want to use a LiPo in your drone. And hang on a minute, what if you've got a gas plane or a nitro plane? Well, hang on, gasoline's flammable, nitro's flammable. You can't carry those things on your model, on your drone. It's killed the hobby. And I know people are going to say, but yeah, but that's, no one would enforce, no one would fine you for having a nitro model just because it had nitro fuel in it. And I know that's true, but it shows that the people making up these rules just don't have a clue what they're doing. Why would you introduce something that requires, this is a law, this is a part of the rules that will have to be ignored 99.99% of the time. Why would you have a rule that is going to obviously be ignored in order to bring reasonable common sense to the equation? The rules shouldn't be so subjective. They shouldn't be required to be ignored most of the time. Are they bad rules? Bad rules. Bad rules. I don't know. So, yeah, and I did have something. Oh, yeah. No FPV. No. You must have visual contact with the model at all times. Unaided visual contact, which means you can't use binoculars and you can't use a video link. So there's no mention of spotters that I could see in it. Basically, if you're the pilot, you must watch the model. So, I'm sorry, FPV no longer allowed. Of course, there's the 250 gram cutoff below, and they're pretty broad. If it's under 250 grams, it's obviously not going to damage a cockpit, is it? Because the science proves that you have to be 300 grams. 299 grams, it'll bounce off harmlessly. 300 grams, you'll kill the pilot. It's amazing how science works when it comes out of the mouth of a politician. Anyway, so, yeah, if you're under 250 grams, all you've got to do basically is just stay away from people and property and don't pose a threat or a danger to personal property, and you're pretty much right. So I can see the hobby in Canada is going to be all about sub 250 now. All about sub 2. It'll have to be, because if you don't want to be infringing the rules, there's nothing else you can do. You can't fly electric, you can't fly nitro, you can't fly gasoline. Gliders. You could fly gliders. Well, there you go. But be careful. If you're flying on a winter's day and you get a bit of snow on the wing, a bit of sleep, you have $3,000 fine. What are you doing, Canada? What's wrong with you people? I mean, the interim regulations weren't too bad, to be totally honest. And of course, there's been references to Gatwick. These are necessary measures because look at the things that happened to Gatwick. And my response is, again, fantasy world. These politicians are living in a fantasy world. They've got no idea. And under the current Canadian regulations, if something like that happened in Canada, the drone operator would still be in breach of your current regulations. So this is going to make no difference, is it? You're not going to... people who ignore the rules don't care about how many rules you've got, how stringent they are, or what the punishments are. They're going to ignore them. So all you're doing is penalising the innocent. I think we've been there. I think I've said that a million times before. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, preaching to the choir, but there you go. So if you're in Canada, prepare to get really small with your models and really light with your models. If you're not in Canada, you should be looking at this and going, oh no, let's hope our regulator doesn't think this is a good idea to register every drone, to put in a minimum age for enjoying the hobby on your own at 14. I mean, let's just look at things. I can recall when I was at primary school, I was 8 or 9, building models and taking them down to the local schoolyard and flying them. And going out to the local model club on days when there were nobody else around. You know, I'd go out there after school and there's no one around to supervise me, but it's perfectly safe, massive great paddock in the field in the middle of nowhere. The Canadians are criminalising that. No, if you're not 14 and you're not a citizen or a permanent resident, you may not fly in our country without supervision. So, yeah, so there you go, that's it. What do you think, Canadians? Hey, you happy with Mr. Garneau's what is it? The science that comes out his backside and the restrictions he's going to place on you. If you were thinking of visiting Canada as a tourist with your drone, what do you think now? Are you going to find somewhere else to go? Come to New Zealand. Come to the airfield. Oh, give you a cup of coffee and a welcome and shake your hand. There we go. That's the new. Well, it's a bit of a rant, isn't it? It really was just informative, but I did rant a little. I apologise for ranting a little. But there you go. I'll put some links in the description to all the relevant bits and pieces you should be reading, whether you're Canadian or someone else. And I forgot to say at the beginning of the video, because Canada is a bilingual, bonjour madame et monsieur. There we go. So I've done my bilingual bit, so don't fall foul of all the rules in Canada if you're watching this. Otherwise, it would have this video is not available in your country because that person didn't speak French. And I don't speak French, but I can make stuff up, just like Mr. Garneau's advisor, science spokesperson, chappie. Anyway, rambling on. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. More to come. Hopefully, more fun rather than rant. Bye for now. Oh, thank you to my Patreon supporters. They made this video possible. Some people might hate them then. I don't know. Anyway, thanks. See ya. Bye.